Do you ever feel like life is a giant jigsaw puzzle, one of those 3,000 piece ones? And the picture on the front of the box is amazing. It's so gorgeous. And then you open the box and there's all these pieces and so many of them look exactly alike. And even once you put the edges together, you're looking at all these pieces going, how am I ever going to make sense out of this? Hello and welcome to Design a Life Worth Living. I'm going to be your guide for this video series, Dr. Minette Riordan, and I want to say thank you for being here and acknowledge you for taking the time to figure out how to make all the puzzle pieces of your life fit together. And if you're here, it's probably because you're a professional woman that's already achieved some success in her life. You may be at the top of your game in your career, or you may own your own business and you're kind of looking around going, maybe this isn't exactly what I wanted. Or you might be looking at your life outside of work and thinking, there's more that I want to be doing. I'm longing for some adventure, some creativity. I'm longing for something different and I'm not sure what. Because life is not like the picture on the puzzle box. It is more like a treasure hunt. Did you ever play those games as a kid where somebody would give you a list and you'd have to go a scavenger hunt, go door to door, trying to find all the pieces and pull them together? That's what life can feel like. And if that's how you're feeling right now, then you're in the right place, because this video series is going to help you get really clear about where you are on the journey. It's going to help you start to design the life that you want to be living and help you really start to build a bridge from where you're sitting right now in the moment to where you can see the beautiful picture on the box out in the future. And life can be kind of crazy at times, can't it? We've all been through a lot of different experiences, a lot of moments of transition where we find ourselves in this place of questioning what's going on in the moment. Who am I being? Why am I doing this? How did I end up here? Are just some of the questions that I hear over and over again from the clients I've been working with for the last 5 or 6 years, as well as the questions that I've asked myself at many different times. So over the course of the 4 videos, we're going to talk about where are you right now on what I like to call your heroine's journey. And the heroine's journey is different than the hero's journey. It's not linear, it's not sequential, it doesn't follow a predictable path. We tend to cycle around through the different stages of the heroine's journey. But if you're here on this video right now, my sense is that where you are on your journey is you're feeling perhaps a yearning to reconnect to the feminine, to reclaim lost parts of yourself. You may be experiencing some different types of awakening going on in various aspects of your life. And I'm going to say more about that in just a few minutes, about what does it mean to be on the heroine's journey. And in part 2 of this video series, we're going to look at, once you've identified where you are, how do you map the next stage? What are some of the very specific tools? And I'm going to share 3 specific tools in the next video to help you move forward in designing that life worth living. In video 3, we're going to talk about meeting yourself on the adventure. Who are you? Who have you been? Who do you want to become? And we're going to look at really connecting with our inner wise woman so that you have the trust and faith that this journey that you're on is the perfect journey and that you know everything you need to do to get from here to the other side of that bridge to the paradise on the other side. And in the final video in this series, we're going to talk about finding allies and guides, because no journey is successful on its own. I'm a huge fan of fantasy fiction movies and fantasy fiction books. I have been ever since I was a little girl. And if you've ever noticed, when someone goes on a quest, they never go by themselves. They always have a team. They always have mentors, guides, and allies that are supporting them on the journey, that help them get through the meetings with ogres and dragons, that help them go through a separation from self and a lack of crisis, or a crisis of faith and belief in themselves, to make sure they're on the path to where they need to get to actually complete the quest. So we're going to talk a little bit about fantasy fiction. We might even talk about dragons in this video series, because I have to tell you, I adore dragons, and I've always loved dragons. I've always loved mythology and fantasy and mystery and magic ever since I was a little girl. And sometimes that really supported me on the journey, imagining that I had these amazing protectors and guides and allies from the fantasy world, even when sometimes I didn't feel like I had that support in my own life. And I want to just share a little bit about a particular moment on my own journey where I recognized that I was on this heroine's path. And it was a bit of a dark night of the soul, and I was having a crisis. And it wasn't just my crisis, it was actually a crisis really for my husband and I and for our family. For over a decade, I owned a publishing company based in the Dallas, Texas area. And I got to a point where some things started to happen simultaneously. My husband was really struggling with allergies in Texas, ended up in the hospital a couple of times. My company was really struggling after the crash in 2008. Our kids were getting older, and we didn't want to think about moving out of Plano when they were in high school. So it created this awkward sense of urgency to make some changes in our life. And then parallel to that, I had this amazing creative awakening where I remembered how much I loved art, how much I loved to teach, and how much I was missing these things in my life. And I started to make art again. And so for the last 8 or 10 years, I've been on this amazing creative journey. This is my artwork that you see on the walls behind me. I started to paint. Last year, I even started to sell my art. Not something I ever even dreamed of in the realm of possibility. But what I did was I just trusted the journey. I did have great guides and allies. Ultimately, we sold the publishing company. We packed up ourselves, our kids, and our little Volkswagen Jetta, and we moved from Plano, Texas to Santa Barbara, California. And as we were on that journey, we had no idea what was going to happen when we got here. We didn't know if we needed new jobs, if we were going to be able to buy a house. And because we trusted that this was the place that we needed to be, everything went perfectly, except for one thing. I didn't count on the amount of grieving that I would go through over this loss of identity as the publisher of this publishing company. Even though I was having these awakenings and amazing opportunities around creativity and around coaching and spirituality, it felt uncomfortable to be in this place of, I don't know who I am right now. And it took me a while to get back on the path. It took me working with some coaches, and it took me getting clients coming in the door and starting to have conversations and getting out and networking and connecting to figure out, who am I being in this next iteration of Dr. Minette Riordan? And there have been multiple points in my life where I have experienced these huge moments of transition and change that took me down a new path. And as someone who's creative and is generally a pretty good risk taker, I made some pretty big leaps in my life, from a PhD in Spanish at Stanford to being a high school teacher to starting this publishing company to starting a coaching business to becoming a mom and raising 2 amazing kids who are now 20 and 17. A lot has happened on the journey, but what I've noticed is that there's some specific things that I do every time I'm in one of these places that help me get back on track, that help me begin to build the bridge from where I am to this beautiful vision on the cover of the puzzle box that I can see that I want, that I know that I'm creating. And at times, even that vision may not be clear. So wherever you are right now, you may be feeling a bit overwhelmed, confused, you may not have clarity, but what you're probably experiencing is this amazing awakening. And I've noticed that we can start to listen to, pay attention to, and connect to this sense of awakening in 4 different areas of our life. So you may be feeling an awakening in your body, and this might show up as a desire to get fit. It might show up as a desire to have a better, healthier relationship with yourself and to fall in love with your physical self. You may be experiencing an emotional awakening, a surge and a rise of emotions that are overwhelming you. And they could be emotions of joy and happiness or tears and sorrow. You may not even know where the emotions are coming from, but they're coming up usually to serve you, to be a teacher for you, and to be released. and to show you the way forward. You may be like me, experiencing a complete creative awakening, a longing to take dance classes or ballet or art or painting, or to go on travel adventures and to start a travel journal. There are so many expressions of creativity. Learn the guitar is another great example of one that pops up for people. Write a book. All kinds of aspects of creativity may be calling your name right now, and you may not know what to do with that or what it means, or you may have some really deep-seated beliefs and stories that you're telling yourself around how you're not creative. And I get those stories because that was my story. I can't draw, I'm not creative, and yet I know deeply that you are creative and I am creative. As humans, we are all so creative. And from that creative awakening, I also recognize, and you may be feeling as well, that you're experiencing a spiritual awakening. This may be a calling to connect to your intuition, to go on a journey, to reconnect to your faith or church. There's no right or wrong way. There's no set path or description of what it means to be experiencing a spiritual awakening. All you know is that maybe suddenly you're seeing things differently or wanting to start a meditation practice. But what all four of these aspects of awakening have in common is that they are a wake-up call. It's why it's called an awakening. It's a wake-up call to get you to sit up and notice that things aren't perfect where you are right now. Doesn't mean they're bad or terrible or horrible, but there's this vague sense of longing for something different. You may be unhappy in your job right now, but you don't know what else you could even think about doing. So paying attention to what's showing up in terms of the awakening is the first stage of our journey together. And you'll see in the workbook that I created for you, there's a place to write down the 4 types of awakening and just do a little bit of journaling about what are you noticing in each of these 4 areas. So body, emotions, creativity, and spirituality. What's calling to you right now? And if you sit quietly and listen, you'll be able to hear that inner wise voice within saying, oh, this is what's happening. Because when you can name it, you can tame it. When you can name it and when you can see it and give it form, you can either say, yes, I want more of that, or, oh, this is here waiting to be released. And if this is bringing up ideas and thoughts, or you're curious, or you'd like to dive a little deeper into your own sense of awakening, I'd love to invite you to have a conversation with me one-on-one. I can only go so deep in these videos, and I love going deep with people. So at the bottom of the page, you'll see a link to schedule a Breakthrough to Creative Courage conversation with me. This is a no strings attached conversation to just get really clear with you about where you are on the heroine's journey. And in that conversation, if it comes up that it would be beneficial for both of us to do some additional work, we can talk about that. But mostly, I know where you've been. I know how hard it is to be in this place where nothing feels clear, where it feels like that brand new box, the brand new puzzle box with the thousands and thousands of pieces, and you don't know how to put them all together. I would love to be your guide and your mentor in helping you put them together. And then once you've figured out where you are on the heroine's journey, in the next video, we're going to go deep into 3 specific tools to help you map the next stage of your heroine's journey. Because once you're clear about where you are, then you can take specific action steps to move you forward. So again, many thanks for being here. I'm so delighted to get to know you. I would love to hear from you, and I will see you in video number 2.